Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I'm your host, Mr. Kadish. Get it right. And joining me today, as always, is my fantastic panel of nerds. And we got a great lineup for you today, starting with Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, bud. What's going on? How is everybody?
Good.
Good. Happy to report there is 3 pounds less of me coming at you this week. So that's fun. So
good dump this morning, or
really good dump this morning.
Yeah,
it was
that
fantastic. It was fantastic. So yeah, man. Happy to be here. Saturday. Let's do it. Yeah.
And he is our shield against all things diverse and woke and all that good stuff. He's no longer Latinx. He is Latwinks. Our genderqueer representation on the panel. Brian from the podcast. How you doing?
Hello, sir. Glad to be here. Glad to be your shield, my liege.
We need it. Yeah. We need a shield.
Grand Pumbaa Kadish.
Yeah. And I will refrain from using Latinx on this live stream in favor of our guest panelist, Paulie from the Latino Slant. Welcome, Paulie. We always love having you on the show, my friend.
Oh, likewise. Thank you guys so much. Good morning, everyone. Good day, everybody. And Brian, don't let them talk to you like that, man. Come on, I'm losing. You're losing the body of credibility with me, brother.
I'm proud to be
there. Ollie, embrace your Latinxness.
I'm proud to be the shield, the salty shield.
God, we've been rallying against that one for a couple of years, man. It's never just
the Latinx thing is really stupid.
Never just about the Latinx. It's all there's so much behind it.
Latinx is really, really dumb.
It's mamadas, we call it. Mamada. And that's a bad word. That's your first Spanish bad word.
What about my mama?
No, Tom. I'm so sorry,
Katie. You said something about my mama.
It's kind of like when Twitter...
he wanted me on camera.
Yeah, I do want you on camera, Tom. Speaking of which, our new regular panelist... Tom Connors.
Nobody wants me on camera.
Tom, he made the thumbnail. I'm very happy.
Tom is now on the thumbnail.
About damn time.
What was with enough already? Is that because I say that too much? Or what? Why did you put that on the thumbnail? That was pretty funny.
It was enough already was in reference to more prequels.
Yeah. And now we're doing prequels about prequels. Like, come on.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it.
Like a section.
See, I was also looking at the cracker count because I was like, enough crackers already.
enough
already.
Yeah. And speaking of white guys, let's introduce the All-Father himself, the Lord of Pineapple, the King of the Shells, Odin. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Family over this weekend, so that's why I was a little late. But glad to be here as always, and welcome Tom to the full-time gig.
Yes,
hey, I'm over here in the corner too, Odin. Hello,
hello.
Sir.
Hi, I didn't see.
Just ignore the Latinx guy.
Was it the hat that threw you out? I even got my cross on my wall. I'm like feeling the
Talk about
Christian love connection.
I don't know. I was kind of getting some Taika Waititi vibes, and so I was like, maybe I should just ignore.
Paulie just needs a picture of Obi-Wan Kenobi Jesus hanging over his shoulder on the wall.
Well, every Mexican house, it's a picture of Jesus and Robert F. Kennedy. So,
I thought you were gonna say Mary, but yeah, Robert F. Kennedy.
JFK. I mean, yeah. The Kennedys. You put the Kennedy and La Virgen together on the wall. It's felt. It's black. You're good.
Also a burning heart. There's also a burning heart in the picture all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sacred Heart of Mary.
Mm-hmm. And to start off today's show, we got a super chat from Mexican Iron Man for $10. Shout out to Mr. Kadish and hi to this great panel. Looks cool with everyone on camera. Yay! As Tom sets his camera.
Brought it up.
Thank you, Mexican Iron Man guys. Just so you know, because we have a new year, we have reset all the shout outs to our top donators. So this month of January, once we go into February, we're going to figure out who donated what and what position they're going to have on our live stream to shout them out. But until then, you are free to give us all the super chats you want, and we will put you on the bar down below. And in addition to that, our goal for this live stream is 10 new members. So if you're looking forward to our member streams on Tuesday, and you want to participate in those, be sure to sign up. Or if you want to gift members so that people can enjoy those, we appreciate that as well. And give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, because we're trying to get as many of those 5-star ratings as possible, so that when Rotten Tomatoes opens up its application process in March, we're ready to go in there and get accredited as actual Rotten Tomatoes movie reviewers, so we can create all types of chaos over there on that website.
They're just gonna go Kadish denied stamped.
Just throw a Spanish surname.
Yeah.
Throw them a Spanish surname.
Yeah, I'll just say I identify as a woman. We'll get right in there.
Whenever I do the YouTube, when they're asking you what you are, what you identify as, what your race is, and everything, I just go as gay as possible and as ethnic as possible every time.
That's the way to do it, man. That's the DEI way. That's how you do that. But before we get going, guys, I just want to congratulate all the real men of America on this panel for killing it with that calendar from last week. We actually got a very good view count on that highlight. Outperformed most of the stuff on our channel, but
it was hilarious.
also a lot of fun.
I feel used.
Yes, well,
Like a
Odin,
whore.
you're going to have to come to grips with yourself as a sex symbol going forward, because there's just no way around it.
It's not our fault, bro. It's your genetics.
You're a good looking guy and you got really good teeth. So, you know.
Excellent
Oh
teeth.
my gosh.
Excellent teeth.
Also, that pizza looked delicious.
Yeah. You're a good cook, Odin.
I'm just really jealous of Tom and all his linebacker women in the background. That was amazing.
What?
So
I still need to see this calendar. I'll go check it out.
And
so
that artist
confused.
gave me an impressive bulge.
And
which I
not
was
in
very
the
happy with.
Brian confused
Oh.
way either.
Oh,
And we already hit half of our goal with Jillian
that's nice.
gifting 5 Salty Nerd podcasts.
Yeah, get
oh
it.
wait, I gotta do this.
Thank you, Jillian. Yes.
And then I get the yay, Jillian. Thank you, Jillian. Yay, Jillian.
That's
Wow, look at all
amazing.
that. Look at all this.
That's
all
amazing.
Blowing up.
How do you do that? I got to figure that out.
It's
He
a
knows
setting.
a guy
that-
who knows a guy who knows George Lucas.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So without further ado, let's get into our first story of the day, which is Amazon has laid off a ton of people, not just in Prime Video, but also over at Twitch and as well as MGM Studios. And this is more proof that Bidenomics is a failure. And they spent way too much on the Lord of the Rings stuff. But this is a very interesting story because it has kind of ramifications going forward. It shows that Amazon is not loose with the purse strings as they have been in the past, and they're trying to do some austerity measures. So I want to throw this to our new regular panelist, Tom Connors Jr. Tom, what are the implications of this new cutback over at Amazon?
Well, first of all, I just got to say, I thought it was quite funny. But no, you go woke, you go broke. I mean, Amazon is probably only second or third to Disney as far as the most woke company on the planet. And it's no surprise that they lost this many employees, and they're going to continue to lose employees. And they spent way too much on things like Lord of the Rings, and it did not foster any sort of real audience for them. And in fact, even the critics that would normally be gung-ho on this, as Andre pointed out many times, hedged all their critiques and reviews early on. So by the time the show was done with, they're like, yeah, it was garbage. And they didn't have any qualms about saying so. Because, yeah, it's just, if you put the message and other things ahead of story and character, this is what you get. And, you know, there's other shows they've had, that Wheel of Time and a few others, that suffered from the same kind of fate. So I'm not surprised. As far as the Twitch side of things, I'm surprised Twitch is even still a thing. Like, I mean, I thought it went away years ago. So, I mean, unless you got tits, I guess you don't care about Twitch anyway. So,
I
Yeah,
have tits.
that's true.
I care about.
Oh, you muted
Mr.
yourself.
Kadish's
Mr.
karate is not
Kadish.
as good as his kung fu.
You're muted, bud.
Yeah. I said everyone cares about tits. So
Mhm.
that's all.
Well, I mean, unless you have them,
Odin.
you're not really much of an asset on Twitch. I mean,
Which
This
means
is
that
true.
maybe watching people stream video games is not as interesting as people think it is. If
I don't
kids
really
are
play
winning every
games,
single
yeah.
time. Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is watch somebody play a game.
Well, they also don't support Twitch does not properly support like esports tournaments, which is something that a vast number of gaming fans do watch. And so they'll let them be streamed, but they don't support them. They always push the individual creator over to the event. And that's a mistake. Twitch makes a lot of mistakes, like not having an app for like various devices, like, the most popular one, the Roku, which is so crazy. So like they make a lot of mistakes, and they had an app, but they pulled it because it wasn't properly monetized. They couldn't shove more ads into the app, which is crazy. So now you have no app instead of having an app with minimal ads. It just makes no sense. The decisions they make are backwards. They're promoting everyone wants the Ninja or the PewDiePie, but they could be making bank off these events.
Yeah,
They're
maybe they
every
shouldn't be giving people $1 million contracts if their company's not making money, right?
Yeah, good point.
So it's very strange to me. Is you go woke, you go broke. What they need to do is they need to have these people like Elon Musk come in there and clean house, get rid of the bloat. You probably don't need a half a dozen masseuses on standby full time down in the rec room for people who have sore necks and stuff. It's just it's crazy. They probably don't need people with agendas working in their customer service department. That kind of stuff. Enough with the deer antler people and the freaks that are not there for any other reason than they're a freak. So no big loss to me. I feel bad for those people losing their jobs, but what do they expect? There's a thing in this article that said they had hired people at Twitch for the staffing that they thought they were going to need 3 years from now, not what they need now. How does that make any sense? That makes no sense at all.
Right.
It's like, Matt, we got the studio. We need to hire 12 people because in 3 years, we're going to be a lot more successful than we are with the studio right now. So let's hire him today and not when we need him. Okay. How does that work?
That's typical Hollywood think.
I really hate that.
3-4 years ahead, be like, oh, we're going to get 6 of these movies.
Yeah.
Well, that's typical, just like preparing for the growth that they expect, but never truly achieve. And I think that there's also quite a bit of money laundering going on with creative Hollywood accounting stuff, which I want to throw to Odin. So Odin, obviously MGM Studios, like all this stuff, Amazon was very, how do you call it, notorious for basically just throwing money around. It was more of a cachet thing under like the current, or I don't even know if she's still involved, but she was the one who basically wanted to get in with all the Hollywood in crowd, and so she'd finance these ridiculously expensive projects like Citadel and stuff like that, and just basically throw money away. So what's your take on this? How do you think this is going to affect Amazon's output?
Well, obviously with anything, I always would hope that when you are spending or when you're making cuts, when you seem to be a little bit more, caring about the quality of the content you're putting out there, at least that's the perception, that's what ultimately happens. I would love for new, great, well-written shows to be the norm instead of where they're the exception, they're the rarity, right? Especially when you think about Amazon, you have shows like Reacher, which are great, which are fun, but that's a very rare opportunity. Like, it's a very rare occurrence that could really ever happen, and there's just so much stuff on there that's crap. And you mentioned the money laundering part of it, and honestly, that just brings me back to especially with Rings of Power and Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, the crock that is the Rotten Tomatoes score for Lord of the Rings is insane. Like, if you go to their main page, it tells you 83% certified fresh, 489 reviews. And you want to know where they get those reviews from? Well, first off, they're double counting people, because that's just the total reviews for all of their episodes combined. And if you remember, they start off with 162 people reviewing it for the first episode, 151 for the second, and then dropped all the way to 35 official reviews for the third episode, and by the end of it, only 26 of them actually stayed around. So the fact that only 26 of these so-called critics watched the entire series, and yet they're going to act as if over 400 critics watched the entire series and gave it such stellar reviews, is so disingenuous. And you just know that there is obviously a lot of wheeling and dealing going on behind the scenes with Rotten Tomatoes, because we've already seen how they will protect certain properties. They will, protect certain companies, especially if there's, financial investments and, monetary, possibilities there as well. And so, my end hope is that places like that get shut down, because of people just not using it anymore, going to places like Criticlist, which are a lot better. But also, too, when it comes to Amazon, I want better content. If they can put out 10, even if it's just 10 shows a year, and they're all at the same level as Reacher, guess what? That they can grow from that. They can make a lot. Instead, wasting money on shows, and then also people forget they're wasting money on a lot of movies, too. I think the first film they put in theaters, from Amazon, was, at least this past year, was Ayer. And that film ended up being, on paper at least, a financial flop. It just didn't make money for the money they put into it. So yeah, I want them to be spending less, but even not just the spending, I want them to just be actually supporting projects with good writing and with original storytelling that people actually can enjoy for once.
But movies like Air and a couple other ones like that, they couldn't even understand why they were pulling them from theaters when they were actually making money.
Mm-hmm.
It's because at the end of the day, they don't care about that part.
Yeah.
Netflix and Amazon are only putting these movies in theaters now just so they can get them for Oscar consideration. That's really all it is.
Yeah, bait.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they just want to bring people to the streaming service. They're not there to bring people to the theaters. So I don't even understand why they're not doing. Like, to me, it makes no sense, because somebody who I worked years and years and years in video, like, there was a lot of companies that would just throw a movie in 1 or 2 theaters just so they could put in their ad, theatrical release, and they can bump up the amount of money that they could charge for the video, because that added value to that title in their eyes. And it's the same thing here. I feel like if I had to go see Air in theaters and then wait 3, 4, 5 months to see it on Amazon, it makes it worth more. Same thing with some of these other movies like Napoleon. I didn't bother to go see it because I know it's going to be on it's on Apple Plus here in a little bit. Same thing with a couple of the other movies. It's like, why should I bother? And they're shooting themselves in the foot, if you ask me, because they could be making money on the front end, and then they are the exclusive home of these things after they leave theaters. It's even better in some ways than what HBO and Showtime used to be for some of these companies, because I mean, then you're going to drive people to your streaming service if you have this big, huge hit, like Barbie or something like that. I know that was Warner Brothers, but it's on HBO Max. A lot of people are going to be watching it there.
Even just to tag on that, there was a time when I would go watch a movie more than once at a movie theater, movies that I wanted to go see, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to see them until they came out on video. And it could be up to 6 months to a year later after a movie comes out. So it's like, do I want to go watch this really cool Godzilla movie again? Because it's going to be a very long time before I get to go watch it on my TV at home, So there was a time when I would go buy an extra ticket to watch later. And now, and nowadays I don't even, half the movies that come out, I go, I'm going to be able to watch it 3 weeks after it comes out anyway, so I'm not going to even waste my time. So
one of the better movies this year nobody really saw because it was on Apple Plus, and that was Tetris.
Fact.
Yeah,
That was a
great movie.
Nobody saw it.
Great movie.
And it could have done great in theaters.
Still haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Well, I want to throw this to Paulie. So, Paulie, what do you think is the fallout from all these people getting fired from the Amazon entertainment arm of things?
Oh man, I don't know. That's my first thought. Is a lot of these? Is it part time or full time that they're getting rid of? I think a lot of these people are used to freelancing, jumping from job to job. So I think most of them will be fine looking for that next job. What I thought of was the productions that Amazon does in Latin America that are basically pickups. They're putting very little into, and they have very little creative control, which is why they're good. So far, right? And a good example of that was a really good show that was produced in Latin America called The Head of Joaquin Murrieta. Great Tarantino style Western. So a full season was put on Amazon last year. Now they're doing that again with Zorro, and that looks killer. That looks exciting. So, what do they have in common? They're produced, by a Latin American studio counterpart. So, I probably see them just kind of doing more of those smart, strategic pickups, especially with those kind of bigger IP names. Obviously, Zorro's huge, and yeah, that's kind of like my immediate thoughts, because these films are, or these buys like the Rings of Power were just that was just a horrible deal. That was just a bad deal. So they're paying for it. And I think if you're going to have any kind of like success this year, it's maybe those picking up those deals where these shows they're already, for lack of a better word, they're already produced and done by other, production companies. That probably is, could keep them going a little bit. I don't know what the budgets were for, what is it, Reacher or The Terminalist. Those were hits, right?
I think so.
As far as bringing in more eyeballs, maybe more subscribers. And then I don't know what movies successes they had this past year. I know The Beekeeper is doing better than expected, and it's probably gonna do good with the male audience. That's Amazon MGM. So I don't know what the budget was for that. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I was listening to the article. I was just like, wow, this is in many different territories. They're not fooling around. They really need to cut back. I mean, it just got bloated. And so that's what happens when people aren't being consistent and checked on the production quality, on where and how they're spending the money. They're just throwing money at the problems, and that doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, and it's kind of par for the course, because we've seen a lot of studios doing these austerity measures. I just want to throw this to Brian real quick. Brian, how do you think these layoffs for MGM Studios is going to affect things? So that I know they have like Stargate and a bunch of other MGM properties that Amazon was flirting with, rebooting.
Yeah, it's very odd that they decided to like launch like MGM Plus. They're like, you know what, MGM has 5,500 IPs. Instead of incorporating all these IPs into Amazon and to Prime to make our catalog stronger, or renting them out or whatever, let's start another streaming service, because that's what everyone needs, another streaming service. And lo and behold, Prime sort of sucks. Like, it's hard, like it's not a simple thing to navigate to all your channels. It's complicated. A lot of these things are hidden. Finding MGM Plus on its own is not easy. And like a streaming service needs to be easy. It needs to have its own app. You're going from, you have to log into Amazon, from Amazon, go to your channels to find this thing. It's just not a practical event. So it was a bad idea to start a new streaming service, no matter how cheap it was. You should have incorporated it into your streaming service, or rented it out to other people. But they didn't want to do that because they want to be able to mine that IP for like say a Stargate revival, Wizard of Oz, et cetera, James Bond. But that's why that entire chapter is eventually going to be closed. I'm predicting that the entire MGM library that they bought will eventually just be folded into Prime, either as rentals or to beef up the Prime catalog, one of the two, or rented out. And MGM Plus will just be, a category versus a service. And as far as Stargate goes, like, that's still in the books. There is people working on it with, along with RoboCop, but it's just really, really far away because of the strikes and all that. So,
RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop is
Nice.
also.
Yeah, that's
happening.
another thing. In reading and listening to the story, was that there's so many outside factors too as well that didn't help. With the dual strikes, with the economy, with inflation, and just kind of trying to get out of the last few years. And then you make this. When was that? When was the Rings of Power deal made? Was it before COVID hit, or was it that year?
It was before.
It was before. Yeah.
Yeah. It was way before.
Yeah.
Right. And then didn't they film a pilot and then they had to redo it?
No, that was Game of Thrones.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
I'm thinking a few years back that they had to get something done before a certain deadline to keep the rights. So
That was Warner Brothers with the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either
Amazon,
way-
they just burn money. They burn like it's easier to burn $100 bills than to go down to the store and get wood kind of money. They just burn it.
Yeah. Either way,
Well, also, pre-2020, the money was flowing like wine, right? Like the economy was booming. They had, the government was giving away checks. It was a better, like there was 0 interest rate on loans. So all these like Hollywood studios, they were riding high on this. And then, after 2020, the economy took a nosedive, and we're in a period of stagflation. And now they're realizing like, oh, now that the good times are over, we actually need to like save money, and so they're paring back on a lot of this stuff. But I want to get to some some super chats real quick, guys. So we have the Joker's voice for $5. Hail S&P, go woke, go broke. Bat Tom has been correct when it comes to successful in Hollywood cocaine and capitalism. Bring it back. # keep talking. Yes, Bat Tom is normally the Nostradamus of Hollywood, so we always appreciate that. No Money G for $10.
No
Pandering to the few people who don't even watch their crap shows is not the way to go. Bringing in talented people who know the source material would be a start. Gross negligence is what it is. This is true.
Well, and it's not even so much knowing the source material. It's just knowing how to tell a damn story and create characters and likable characters, and having directors who know how to work with actors who are not just there to push forward some kind of narrative, basically.
Indeed.
And even that, what Tom just said, that's a miracle to pull off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want the best of the best to be able to write, to be able to direct, to be able to cast, to be able to communicate production, effects in the thing. And then it's like, wait a minute, we don't have enough people of color on the set. I gotta let you go. Or oh, wait a minute, I'm the wrong color. Okay, I'm not even here because I'm not even eligible for the job. And then of course, what I just said, a director will have no idea how to execute what I just said, because guess what? They're not a director. They're an activist, maybe a documentarian. It's very difficult for a documentarian, whether it's short or long form, to successfully, if I could say it, trans, go from that to fictional storytelling. It's so difficult.
I
Like
thought
Star Wars.
documentarians get you a Star Wars trilogy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Nowadays.
I saw that.
No, but Paulie's right. I mean, one of my favorite sayings is, it takes a million things to go right to make a movie and only one thing to go wrong to derail it. And when you have things that are working against it on every level as it is already, when you turn around and have this crap with, the diversity, equity, and inclusion bullshit that they have to deal with on top of it all, it's just, it's a formula for nothing but garbage. And that's pretty much for the last.
And me and Tom we've talked like years now about this. God, time flies. Obviously I want to see great presentation of Latino stories, but this is not how you go about it. Well, first of all, we barely see us anyways. But this is not how you go about it. You cannot it cannot be at the expense of great talent. It can't. I don't care what color you are. That's why me and Mexican Iron Man have the defend the crackers, go fund me campaign going. We're behind it. We're behind you guys. We got you guys. We got you.
Thank you. Us crackers are
Yes.
too weak to defend
We
ourselves,
appreciate
so,
you.
Yes, we do.
Que viva.
All right. Chad Man for £2. How's it hanging, my people? Low and to the
Little
right.
crooked.
Yeah.
Don't ask John Roca.
Yes.
Oh.
And Wreck Films Montana for $5. Is it even possible for Hollywood to tighten their pants and realize that there's not infinite returns on budgets of more than $50 million? I'd even go so far as to say 30 million. I think that's like kind of the sweet spot that Hollywood should be shooting for in terms of financing films. Odin, what do you
That'll
think,
that'll
man?
cover one of the actors' salaries, though, right? If you
I
get a
think
good
that's the issue, right? Is you have some films just can't be a certain amount because they've got actors in there with egos who are going to demand certain payments, and so that balloons things like budget. But then also too, like you've seen films being made for 15 million and less that
Yeah.
have been phenomenal, that have looked great, that have had great people. I mean, I keep bringing it up because it's seriously, the more I think about it, the more I love it. Iron Claw, 15 or so million. Zac
Great movie.
Efron is a pretty big name. I mean, he's not as huge as like a Tom Cruise, but still like a well-known name. And basically what you need is people who are going to write these stories that are just good, so that they'll actually attract actors that are going in more so for the craft and more so for that part of it versus the financial gain, because you can
Can't-
put out
yeah, my only
so
thing with
many of those movies and actually make money back.
My only thing with that, Odin, is that every actor can't just do it for them, like that artistic one all the time. They got to do a couple for the studio, for the deal, one for themselves. That's why it's kind of worked. With Iron Claw, you needed a Zac Efron name, and he was incredible. I'm really upset he hasn't been talked about as far as award nominations.
Mhm.
One of my favorite performances of the year. But these guys sell the features of this in different territories. That's why it's important to have a name.
Well, you guys, another factor that was mentioned in this article that kind of goes to it, and I want to get Tom's take on this, is that the writers and actors strikes that hit Hollywood, basically with the actors renegotiating their contracts and the writers, they made it more expensive for studios to basically, create content. And so a lot of these austerity measures of studios firing people are in direct response to how much more they have to, pay the writers and actors making this stuff, which basically means that everyone is making less money because they're making fewer stuff, they're hiring fewer people, and they're firing a bunch of people. So Tom, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, if you press their hand and say you have to have certain standards filled, then the studio's just going to make less things, which is what we've seen happen here, right? Like, they're just not going to hire as many people. They're going to lay people off. They're not going to do as many projects. It's inevitable, right? You've already pushed them to the point with this idea that it has to be so diverse and inclusive, right? Like, I mean, we just had this Film Threat article that was written about the writers in Hollywood and how they have to fill out these forms and all this other garbage. And it's like, how has that got anything to do with making a movie or making a TV show? I don't understand any of this. The color of somebody's skin or whether or not they're disabled shouldn't have anything to do with their writing skills.
Nope.
It makes absolutely no sense to me. And this is a problem across the board, right? It's the unions. It was already an issue when you had to have 3 people doing one person's job. See, that was the big problem in Hollywood, is you literally had, like, the main actor themselves. Help me out here, Paul. He probably has, 5, 6 individuals just to stand in for them, deal with this, deal with that, bring them their fucking lunch, mess with their hair. I mean, that's just one person, right? Let alone the catering, the grips. You have to have X amount of people on set for this, that, or the other. Now you got your, intimacy coordinators and all that other bullshit. Like, how much more shit can we stack on here, right? And the only way you can make a movie for 10, 15 million anymore if it's made non-union, basically, is what I'm getting.
And if you don't believe that, like, look to any movie made the last several years and just wait through the credits, and you'll see assistant to so-and-so, assistant to so-and-so, hairdresser for so-and-so. You'll see all of these things. And again, as you mentioned, the more that this starts to, with the recent changes to the deals that have been made, right, where they're getting even more and the studios therefore are getting less, guess what? That's just going to keep on getting higher and higher.
I mean,
All
but
right,
that's
guys.
always been there. That's always been there as far as, getting your friend a job on the set. That's always been there. But that being said, it's gone too far, right? And I'm talking more of like that, your entourage, your crew. It's like, hey, get him a job. What is he gonna do? Just
Yeah.
make him have
Security.
him pull cable. Have him
something,
pull
yeah.
cable, but he's my boy. I want to, as opposed to the intimacy coordinators or extra lawyers, those shouldn't be there all the time. Sometimes they are necessary, but most of the time they're not. And it does get in the way of just production. I can tell you that there has been an instance where the creator of a TV show, which only went one season, who was the novelist of the show, was on the set and had several witnesses who, in that novelist, said something pretty racist. Man, they shut down that production. This is a network production. They froze the production. They flew lawyers in, talkers in. They interviewed everyone involved. It was as if this was a crime scene, yo.
Mm-hmm.
So they get real serious with that stuff, So and that was just a network television show that didn't last. I don't think it was because of that. At the end of the day, the novelist, but that stuff does happen. Crazy stuff happens on set. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, guys, speaking about crazy stuff, let's start talking about our next little news story, which is, of course, Star Trek's prequel and sequel that have been announced. Now, guys, we got this Variety article that tells us, a little bit misleading, I think, that there's a new Star Trek movie that has been greenlit by Paramount from the makers of Andor. Well, it was the guy who directed the episodes of Andor. It's not Tony Gilroy, right? Like, I feel like when this was announced, everyone was like, Tony Gilroy is making a Star Trek prequel?
This is Andor director. It doesn't say creator, but yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Exactly. So, like, this is.
Well, I just want to say up front, they pissed us off because this is part of, like, every 4 to 6 months they announce a Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've gotten to the point now where we have done so many videos on this that we've gone, look, all we have to do now is just reuse the old video and go,
Right.
new director here and new writer here. But now they went and messed with us, so we can't do that. So they had to add a prequel to the mix, so we couldn't just reuse our old video. Jerks.
God,
Well, the interesting thing about this is, so first of all, the prequel that was announced seems far more concrete to get made than Star Trek 4 has. So Star Trek 4 is still in kind of like a weird limbo. But
that's because JJ's desperate to get it made, I think, because he's got to for licensing. Because I think next year, if he doesn't have it in production, he'll end up losing the Bad Robot license, I think is the case.
It could be, but they're already saying that Star Trek 4 is meant to be the final Bad Robot Star Trek movie. Like they want to put an end to like the series, I guess you could say. So the news on the prequel is that it's set to take place like 50 years before Star Trek 2009, that movie. And I'm just like, are we going to have like Captain Archer on this thing? Or like it's just like we've done prequels to the original series era before. In fact, Discovery started off as a prequel, right?
Right.
But what's interesting is that this director, he also directed the Star Trek spoof episode on Black Mirror. So like he's got some chops where he could potentially deliver a good Star Trek film, but at the same time, I'm just like, why do we keep going backwards? So I want to throw this to our resident Star Trek expert on the panel, Brian from the Popcast. Brian, what do you think about them just continuing to go backwards in time as opposed to moving the franchise forward?
I hate it so much. I don't understand why. And it's not just Star Trek. It's like everything has to continually go backwards, dude. It's like prequel on prequel until at some point they're announcing Predator Year 1, 10,000 years ago. You're like, come on. Why are we not going forward? And I believe they don't have, they're cowards. I think Hollywood, especially in Paramount, they're cowards. They don't have the intestinal fortitude to actually continue the story because they are worried that they don't know where to go. They can't mine characters from the past, which is what they think they need. And no one wants to take the risk of being the person to take that step forward and take the wrong step. So everyone just continually picks up a point in history and goes backwards. And I got to tell you, Like when it first started happening, I complained about it. I don't want to watch Star Trek, 100 years ago. I don't want to watch Star Trek in the past. I don't want to watch prequels. And when the prequels came out, when the Star Wars prequel came out, I'm like, I don't want to watch this. I don't care about this. I want to see my characters moving forward. I want to see the universe moving forward. People told me, don't worry about it. We're getting more information about a period of history, or a period of that universe's history that we couldn't see. No big deal. It's good. But then now look at us. It's continual. 10 years later, it's every single one of these franchises are just continually moving backwards in time. It's like they don't understand the concept of linear time anymore. We're just going backwards and backwards and backwards. So now we're going to have a prequel on a prequel on a prequel. And it's crazy because the reboots were technically a prequel because of the time shenanigans. And now there's a prequel on that prequel. It's an inception of cowardly prequels. I'm so fucking tired of it.
What is it a prequel to? The Prime universe or the J.J. Kelvin timeline universe?
It's the Kelvin universe.
It's the Kelvin
So we're getting a prequel.
Remember, there's 3 universes now.
No,
3.
I think we're getting a prequel to the action movie universe that isn't real Star Trek, but
Kelvin.
oh my god. Okay, it's just
so because of time shenanigans.
This is how you
Kelvin,
configure
the Kelvin timeline, and now there's a prequel about the Kelvin timeline, which is weird because, like, isn't that where the timeline branched? So, like, we're just gonna
but it branched like 30 or whatever it was, 20 years before.
So that's what we're gonna see.
Remember that. But yes, there is 3 timelines now. You have classic Trek, which is all the original stuff up through Enterprise. Then you have Kelvin Trek, which is J.J. Abrams bullshit. Then you have Kurtzman Trek, which is anything that he's done under that. So it's basically 3 separate things. And they consider J.J. and Kurtzman Trek prime. So when they say that, that's what they mean. So the original Trek is not what they consider prime.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
And Picard season 3 is a continuation of the Prime universe,
Yes.
but we have to discard Picard seasons 1 and 2. Is that right? Or
You
those
can.
Yeah, we do.
Man, they've really dropped the ball over there, huh?
Yeah, no, they really have. Yeah, what's funny is and they showed it in Strange New World season 2 when they went back to, like, when for some reason it was in Canada or whatever, and Con. That's when they started really showing that the timeline was just totally shattered. When at some point, like, a bomb from the future blows up the bridge, and Pike and then Kirk and security officer chick look at each other and they're like, okay, no, that happened in both of our universes. So whatever happens next is a problem. Like, wait a minute, hold up. Can you back up a little bit? Because isn't it weird that you find that a bomb from the future in both your universes blew up the bridge? That should never have happened, which means your 2 futures are both branch timelines so you're both shouldn't be here. The whole thing makes no sense.
I'm confused.
It's such a warped, and they want it to make more sense. They don't want it to make sense. They want to continually be able to pull from this, like, omni tool of this Swiss Army knife of whatever they want to pull out of their ass. They can pull whatever the character they want from whatever universe, from whatever timeline, and shove member berries in your face.
And they just go.
You get Star Trek fans to watch.
Wormhole and black hole.
Yeah, wormhole, black hole,
some kind of hole is
singularity drive.
Yeah,
warming and singularity drive combined with the caretaker array.
Which, I mean, I kind of noticed with Picard season 3 is that, I mean, look, I'm not trying to say that anybody who liked it is wrong. I watched it and I'm like, yeah, this is about on the same par as the TNG movies, but I think people are loving it so much because they're, like, starving right now for good Star Trek. It's like the Eddie Murphy analogy with a cracker, basically.
You know what, though? Tom, I'm not starving for new Star Trek anymore.
Some people are, though.
I used to be starving for new Star Trek.
I'm starving for good Star Trek.
I'm it's almost to the point where I'm at with Star Wars. It's just like I don't know if I care enough anymore.
I care more about Star Trek now than I do Star Wars, but that's just because it can be fixed.
Yeah,
I mean, Star Wars.
If they don't make Star Trek Legacy, then I don't know what they're thinking.
It's still in the cards. That's what I know. Like,
so,
yeah,
I don't think things are changing all the time. With the sales and mergers, there's a big mess going on right now. They're trying to figure out what to do with Star Trek because the sad part is Secret Hideout has some investment in it now, so they have to separate Either separate Secret Hideout from the mess, or buy them out and soak them up somehow.
Can I
And
just
this
say
is all
something really quick?
going on while they're trying to sell off and merge.
Look at Tom's arms. No, go back to him. Look at those manly arms. I just want to say that.
Oh gosh. Well, what I was gonna say, kind of, because I'm not really a Trek person, but would I be correct to assume that Star Trek fans probably not nearly as jaded as Star Wars fans? Maybe. I mean, because like for me, I obviously I think that there's definitely a lot of similarities in the fandoms just not being happy with it. But to me, it just seems like Star Wars. I look at that and I look at the fact that they have these movies and these shows that are just doing so abysmal. But then with Star Trek, there are these seemingly moments of hope. I don't know. Like that's why I think for me, like when you say that Star Trek could still be fixed, part of me wonders if maybe the only reason why that might be the case is because of them not being as jaded as like Star Wars fans. I don't know.
I don't think it's that so much Odin as
hold on a sec, Tom. So we're going to continue this discussion a little bit, but first we have to wish adieu to our favorite Latinx, Brian. He's got to bail a little bit early because he's got a family obligation.
Loser.
Brian,
family.
Brian, do you have any final thoughts and where can people?
Hopefully it goes well.
No, I'll just answer Odin. I think that Star Trek fans still have hope that the tailspin can be pulled up at
yeah, probably
because there's still a chance. Star Wars is solidly with Disney. It's not going anywhere. They've made it very clear that their direction is whatever they want to do. They're focused on the next generation. They don't give a shit about the original fans. But Star Trek, there's still glimmers of hope. You still have a Picard season 3, a couple episodes of Strange New Worlds that work. You
couple
still have
episodes.
Probably a few, maybe like 3 to 5.
Yeah.
You still have things that sort of work, and you're like, you know what? I can still see, Star Trek in this mess, and so there's still a chance that, when I guess Kurtzman's contract's up in a couple years, right? When that drops, when maybe someone like Terry Matalas can edge in there, someone who's a fan of TNG and put their mark on it, or Manny Kodo or something like that. Some things, somehow someone will weasel their way in there, and start pumping out Star Trek that looks like what it used to be. But with Star Wars, it's like it's gone. It went from like hope to disappointment to anger, and now we're just at like pure apathy. We're just like, I just don't give a shit anymore. Every time Kadish brings up Star Wars, I'm like, what do you think about this new project? I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I don't know about it. I don't care about it. Like, oh, what about this? You're the non-binary person who's gonna play a Jedi with a lightsaber that goes limp when he uses it, like a limp flaccid penis. And I'm like, I don't care.
No, you're not wrong, and I'll expand on that after you.
I've just completely stopped caring. I'm like I've been in like an abusive domestic relationship with Star Wars, and I'm at the point where I'm just numb to the pain, and I just don't get it anymore.
That's how everybody is, I think.
Yeah. But with Star Trek, I'm still like, come on, baby, we could do better. We could do better, baby.
Come on.
Let's go to the counselor. Look, stop seeing Alex Kurtzman. He's not good for you. All right.
Like, I'll take a little blue pill if you really want me to.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll take it. I'll take 2. Just
Could it
whatever
be
I need to do.
movie-based franchise versus TV-based franchise could also be a factor there?
That's kind of where I'm going to jump into this because I got
to love. Good luck.
Take care, man.
Not only that, the big thing
Brian.
is take care, Brian. The big thing is Star Wars is one linear timeline, right? Like there's only one, right? That's the big overarching problem here
that we know of.
Well, point being, Star Trek went off the beaten path with 09, right? There was a lot of fans that were like, I may not like this, but it doesn't matter because they set it up to where this is its own timeline, so it doesn't disrupt anything before.
Yeah, it was definitely able to separate the two.
Yeah, and after Into Darkness, most people checked the fuck out. Right. So and most people didn't check into STD. The moment they saw what it was, they're like, no, I'm good. See ya. It wasn't until Picard when a lot of the classic Trek fans checked back in, and that first season really turned them off. And that's when a lot of people first noticed there was a problem with Star Trek to begin with. And then season 3 came back. They finally gained back some of the audience. But that's the thing, is there's always this glimmer of hope with Star Trek, and you can always go back and do to Star Trek what J.J. Abrams did to Star Trek. That's the thing. So no matter where they're at in it, they can just either ignore all this extra crap because the original linear Star Trek timeline is still there and has never been disrupted, right? Once they did the JJ09 stuff, that's what set off that alternate timeline where they'll never be able to mess with the original timeline anyway. So you can still do stuff in the original timeline if you wanted to. But I agree with Brian as well. The bigger problem Star Trek has had from day one has just been that they've never gone forward in the newer stuff, right? It's always been going back up until Picard. Picard was the first time you actually went forward with the story. And Picard season 3 was probably the most well-received thing.
Well,
in the entire
technically,
run.
Star Trek Discovery went 1,000 years in the future, and so
Oh, fuck
they didn't-
Discovery.
because they couldn't prequel very
Now,
good. That's for
was
sure.
it
So they
in
had
the
to-
future of the Kelvin timeline?
No.
Correct. Well,
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Technically, the Kelvin / Kurtzman timeline.
Because I
so
think
it's like,
that's a great
Yeah.
way of wording it. And I thank you for the explanation for a non like Trekkie who's only watched DS9. So like, because it helps a lot to think like, well, that's how people can compartmentalize, right? Is say, okay, yeah, this is where Trek is currently going, but it's also in this timeline that, you know, I can actually legitimately say, oh, okay, this is a timeline I just don't care to worry about. I'm just going to focus on this timeline instead. And, you know, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't think a lot of Star Wars fans would necessarily want there to be any type of timey-wimey stuff brought in, even if it could potentially, you know, because obviously the main timeline is what's been messed up. So,
Well, I want to throw this to Paulie real quick. So, Paulie,
Oh.
one of the big issues since
Don't
Star
do that.
Trek Star Trek Beyond has been that a Star Trek 4 just keeps getting pushed back. It almost happens and it doesn't, and it almost happens and it doesn't. And I know that J.J. Abrams is in such a weird position in Hollywood right now because like nobody wants to work with him after Rise of Skywalker, and all these studios are looking to get out of their deals with him. And he's, you know, he's been the guy who's gone to Quentin Tarantino, tried to convince Quentin Tarantino to do a Star Trek movie. Quentin Tarantino was kind of interested in that, but ultimately chose not to do it. And now, like, JJ basically wants the 4th Star Trek movie to kind of close out his bad robot arc that he started in 2009. Why do you think it's so hard for people to get a Star Trek 4 going?
I just think it's hard to get a movie done, period, with your vision, with the cast, with the director, with the writers that you want. That is a miracle to happen. I don't think you're going to get that cast that's the latest Star Trek cast. You're never going to get them back again, and they're aging out as well.
And don't they all require higher salaries now?
yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
every one of them.
there are
doesn't
more
even
names,
sound
right?
that interested either.
Well, and I mean, there's so again, like, yes, that's all under that whole thing of like getting your desired cast, your director, your producer, all the writer, all that, you know. Now that being said, I'm going to say something as my camera shakes. J.J. Abrams is a very competent producer. You know,
Of
maybe on the
Bowell?
directing tip, people don't want to work with him, but he produces hits. He's, you know, and I see him with all the new and big latest talent hanging out, schmoozing. So he knows how to schmooze. He knows how to produce, which is always going to be needed. I don't know how much of an alpha dog he is as a producer, but he's produced hits, and I know it's not popular. Not a fan of his films. I've even had arguments with Tom on this, comparing his films to Zack Snyder. We won't go there. But
I actually had to
if
say
he's
JJ was better.
if he's tenacious, he'll get this film done. That's just it.
No, I mean, he is a good producer, but what has he done for us lately? That's the question. Like, and that's what Hollywood's asking right now too, is what have you done for us lately? And if you want to share this real quick, this is what I said in response to the whole J.J. Abrams thing, because this is what we've been saying for a while. Hollywood realized that no one was making money off of J.J. Abrams movies except for J.J. Abrams. See, that was the big problem, especially with Star Trek. You want to talk about Star Trek?
I mean, but
there was somebody
up until the last 2 films, he helped revitalize and has been producing the Mission Impossible movies. So to say he's not making money, he's sitting there literally making money.
he didn't have that much to do with Mission Impossible.
It doesn't matter.
really.
You know that. It doesn't matter.
Really.
He's
third
part of that production
one-
team, Bad Robot.
Yeah.
And he helped turn around. We can go back and forth. I know me and you have
Yeah.
pretty
No,
passionate
but here's
about
my
this.
point on this: is when it comes to Star Trek.
And I don't like defending J.J. Abrams, by the way.
No, the reason that Star Trek 4 is not likely to happen is because he has to come up with the funding, because Paramount's not going to foot the bill this time, because they learned the first 3 times, especially the first 2 times, that the movies cost too much, so they didn't make any money, and all the money, most of it, went into J.J. Abrams' pockets through various avenues. That was the thing, and this is what he's done. This is why Warner Brothers said to hell with you with that $500 million deal he had with them, because he hadn't been producing anything.
How much would it cost him to make a proper Star Trek 4 and to finish this thing off?
In reality, it shouldn't cost him a damn as much as he's spending, but he'll end up spending 120, 130
I was gonna
million
say,
dollars.
180 was the last film he did for
Yeah.
Star Trek, and then it was 185 to 190, and the first one he did was
So
150.
200
yeah,
million.
he's a big spender.
All right.
So just on TV level, Lovecraft Country, Westworld, the last few years, just as a
That
producer,
was almost a decade ago.
just as a
almost now.
producer, and as a producer, he's got a lot of projects in the pipeline.
Tom, isn't that article that you replied to an article stating that he's basically been exiled for the last
Yeah,
3
that's
or
my
4
point.
years?
Yeah, and that's what I've been saying is all his deals have been drying up.
Because he's kind of just a bad luck guy right now or something, right? Nobody wants to touch him
Well,
because of
As I said,
Star
he
Wars and stuff.
costs a lot of money, and then they realize that the thing they're getting delivered is not what they were promised, or costs way too much, and isn't not bringing in the money it's supposed to. I mean, none of his movies have ever made money outside of The Force Awakens, if you really think about it. The first Star Trek movie did okay, but it also cost like 3 or 4 times as much as what a normal Star Trek movie should cost.
right.
There was an executive at Warner Brothers who quietly got booted, who was one of the only people who had the balls at that time to say, we're spending too much on these Star Trek movies. They're only making what the old movies used to make, and we're spending 3 or 4 times as much on them. That we can't keep doing that. We can only spend what, through whatever, inflation wise would be the difference. And that's roughly 60-70 million dollars now. You cannot spend more than that on one of these movies and expect to make a profit, because it's not Star Wars. That's the difference. And even Star Wars, as we've seen, is not infallible. It's fallen off a cliff. And even Solo, as it was, should have made money, and it didn't.
Well, guys,
And they haven't.
And I just
Trek
want to
wasn't
make
really
it
known
real
for-
clear.
guys, I want to continue on with this Trek talk, but I want to take a different a different look at this. So if you guys aren't following William Shatner on Twix, you're missing out, because the Shatner is based as fuck. He's wonderful. I love his tweets, but he got into it with a fan who was asking some questions, and not into it in a bad way, but this fan asked him why Captain Kirk wasn't seen on any of the promotional images that Paramount was putting out in regards to Star Trek, because they have these images that kind of show like characters from all the different series and stuff like that. And for the original series, it was Spock, and they're like, why don't we see Captain Kirk? And Shatner had some very interesting commentary on this, where he basically said that they're all a bunch of elitists over there. They want to try to memory hole the character of Captain Kirk because he's too masculine for them. And it was a very kind of interesting exchange, I thought, because it was basically just Shatner telling it like it is. And he basically called out all the wokies over at Paramount and Star Trek and stuff like that. But I have always wondered, like, why is there such a heavy emphasis on Spock instead of Kirk? Is it because William Shatner is still alive and can give them grief, and Leonard Nimoy can't? Like,
I think that's
just don't
part
know.
of it. Plus, it's cheaper, probably. It's probably cheaper to get the likeness for Leonard Nimoy than it is to pay William Shatner. And as he says, he doesn't want to play ball, right? And that's the biggest thing.
They have to pay him to use a image of Captain Kirk.
Probably.
That's interesting. I figured they would.
So.
I figured that
use
Paramount would
likeness.
own that Captain.
I mean,
Kirk
I'm sure they own certain
Well,
images, but
Depends on
Yeah,
the contracts. There's.
I would think that there's like some type of like promotional thing, because like they have to license out his likeness for toys and.
I mean,
some
I
of this
just
stuff.
I remember Shatner saying something like how he hasn't made a dime off Star Trek since like 1973 or something like that. So
Because
I don't know.
I
but-
bet the contract that he has, it wouldn't surprise me that the wording of it allowed for them to not have to give him basically any residuals for newer technology or for newer things. Like, again, this is something that would, if he's saying he's not getting anything from it, that would be my guess, is that they're using the wording of the contract to say, oh, no, we don't have to give you residuals.
I mean,
I highly doubt he's not getting anything from Star
Right. I
Trek.
was just gonna say he's milking that Star Trek train.
He might get
Just on
stuff from the
just on-
movies, but I wonder about
just-
the show because the
Yeah.
show came out
Just
so
on
long
his
ago
appearance-
that
just on
Odin
his
might be
appearance-
right. Sorry, Paulie, go ahead.
That's all right. No, and I think it's great. I think it's great that I have a lot of friends that have appeared in sci-fi movies. They still make money off their appearances and tours and conventions, and that's William Shatner. So he's doing fine, and I'm
But
glad
that's
that
not
he
residuals, though.
No, I know,
And
I
that's
know,
what we're
but
talking about.
no, I know, but I said he's still making money off that Star Trek train,
Oh yeah,
Sure.
not the residuals. Correct.
yeah. Because as Odin was saying, I think he's probably correct. Back when the original show, they would have never had stuff like that in the contract, so they probably all got screwed over.
Yep.
And I mean,
Yeah.
even a lot of classic actors we learned over time, everyone, all the way back to the Three Stooges, got screwed out of residuals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was just I think the stuff with Paramount is a woke company, and Shatner's kind of based, and they know that he will pipe up and say stuff when he doesn't agree with something. So I think them keeping him off of the promotional material is very on purpose, and I would understand if he's a little bit angry or bitter about it, because he is the original captain. He is the face of this franchise still now, 60 years later. And I don't blame him. I'm surprised he's kept it as calm as he has when that kind of stuff happens.
Well, and he hasn't been real friendly ever since the 09
Mhm. Yeah.
Star Trek, because that was when he said he was kind of upset that Nimoy was in it, but he wasn't.
Right.
And he had even said at some point, like, because he kept getting asked, well, if they ask you to come back, will you? He's like, fuck no. It's like, I'm done. That door is closed, basically, in so many words. So
I want to read the quote that from his tweet, where he basically said, it doesn't bother me in the least in regards to him being left out of the promotional materials. He says, a bunch of self-righteous strangers thinking they are sending a message by erasing the past. Who is going to forget? It's everywhere. I mean, he's basically like, I am Star Trek. Like, nobody's going to forget me, type thing.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it is interesting, because if we look at this image here, let me pull it up real quick. So you have all the live action captains in this image except for the original series,
And that was last year's promo. The new one is even
The new one's worse, right?
Yeah.
I saw the new one. Yeah.
And there's got to be like just personal animosity with this.
and why is Uhura on there?
Exactly. Like, so, you think about how big
hot.
the original Star Trek is. Like, even as someone who's not a Star Trek person, like, I just know how much cultural impact that still has, right? And so the fact that you wouldn't have him means, okay, there's something clearly going on there that is more than just, I imagine, more than just money, and more than just, probably more of his personality, to be honest.
Well, it's also interesting because Kirk is the quintessential Star Trek captain, right? He's the one that everyone's like, yeah, I love Kirk. It's either Kirk or Picard, and after 2 seasons of Star Trek Picard, it's like, now it's Kirk. So it basically comes down to, like, why does Paramount not want to celebrate Captain Kirk? And do you, I want to ask you, Tom, do you think that it has to do with Kurtzman? Is Kurtzman making the call where he's like, I don't want to focus on Kirk because of diversity reasons, or what?
Well, what's weird is they don't even have their Kirk on there, right?
Yeah.
See, and that's the other thing that's kind of stands out to me is, yeah, Kirk has been given the shaft no matter which way you cut it. And I don't know if it's Kurtzman or if it's just their marketing department over there, which could very well be full of wokey wokes too. That's the other problem with half this shit. So, like, at this point, like, you look at that and it looks bad. It does not look Star Trek-y at all. It does not invoke Star Trek, does not make me want to watch any of those shows. I don't care about any of those people. I know the characters they're trying to invoke. Like I just said, what the fuck is Uhura doing up there? That's supposed to be the captains. She ain't no captain.
Well,
So what
she
the
also
fuck?
passed away.
But
She passed away. So.
It's also diverse. They got
She passed away.
But that's not
She's
even
beloved.
that's not even the original Uhura. Bring it back up.
No, it is.
No, it isn't. Bring it back up. I'm pretty sure that was the remake, the redo one. Is that the original? Okay,
That
it was
is
far
the
away.
original. Yeah.
Okay, then fine. But she's still not a captain. And what the fuck is that purple thing?
Oh, that's from Star Trek
They
Prodigy.
keep taking it away from you, Tom. I mean, she's a pretty huge name, and she passed away.
That may be fine because she passed away, but that's still not the point. Why is anybody there from the classics if Kirk's not there? It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even that new one, Kadish, that I saw was that's what he responded to, right?
Yeah,
because someone
I'm gonna post a picture, link to the new promo picture in the private chat. There you go.
Yeah. You want to share your screen?
No, I always mess that up.
All right. Well, Paulie,
yes.
What do you think about the whole like diversity initiative with Star Trek? Like, because it's always been like one of the badges of honor for Star Trek, as it's always been diverse and progressive and all this other stuff, where it's like basically Earth can solve all of its problems and we can all come together no matter your religion, race, age, nationality, like whatever. We're all humans, and therefore we're all connected, and we can go out into the universe and discover stuff for the benefit of all mankind. But there has been like some culture war lines drawn in the sand in the past couple years, where it started with Star Trek Discovery, where it's basically like oh, we're gonna have they them pronouns, and we're gonna have gay people, and we're gonna have all this other stuff. And there are some people who are like, you're putting too much emphasis on these things instead of telling a good sci-fi story. And then there are people who are like, no, these things matter. We need to focus in on these things. So what's your take on that?
Well, the original Star Trek was very, was a pioneering effort on many accounts. I mean, they had to, fight to get certain things done on that show, which is great. And even the subject matters that they dealt with, I always thought were just very intelligent and smart, and very much like whether it was like a ethnic specific thing or a human calamity that has happened in our history, it was always done with so much smart and just a real it just touched and brought us together on our human about our human condition. That's not that doesn't happen now. That rarely happens now with a lot of modern storytelling. It's the reverse again, right? It's Hollywood is to me, Hollywood has always been hypocritical and racist towards however you want to word it. They actually did better in including and having great diverse stories in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and some 90s. And me and Tom talk about this all the time. It's like nothing else existed before 2015. So now it's listen, I don't watch any modern Star Trek, so I can't really speak on that. I can just imagine how awful it is, and from some of the storylines that I've heard are just there's a difference in being in what we talked about as far as like old school progressivism in entertainment, because Hollywood's always been that, as opposed to what we have now, and that where it's all that matters, but it's really souveniristic. It's really one-dimensional and controlled, the images by people who have no idea what they're stepping into, which is where you can tell it's inauthentic. Whether it's sci-fi, drama, television, you can tell that listen, I don't know anyone in from my hood, or I grew up, people don't talk like that. People don't say words like that. Latinx. So we just don't. And that's a super majority. It's a super majority. So the funny thing is that Hollywood doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of people of color, for lack of better words, that are conservative, that have very conservative values, which is nothing wrong with that. But you're not going to show that on your television shows, on your films right now, because it doesn't suit you in creatively what you want to control. And that's what I have a problem with. I absolutely love diverse storytelling. Which says to my childhood, all my heroes were diverse. Rocky Balboa, Luke Skywalker, Danielson, Mr. Miyagi, all that. It wasn't until I grew up, that I grew up later, as far as a teenager in college, where it was like, you should just start seeing these different images. But that's fine. That's why we want them growing up. So, yeah, I talk about this and deal with this. I'm working on a new essay where I want to say, dear Hollywood, please move for this year. If you're going to do a Latino television or film, take out any pain of my people storylines. Anything. I don't want it. You've already done it. You've done it pretty good. This past year was pretty good. I don't even want it in sci-fi. I don't want it in any genre. I would love to see how you can tackle people who happen to be from a certain background, where what we talked about in early Trek, where you hit that human condition that brings people in. None of that. Clearly we see that Hollywood is incapable, for the most part, of handling this on a mature and intelligent and passionate level of storytelling. You can't without shoving it down our throats.
All right, real quick, guys. Got a couple of members chats to get to, but we hit our goal. Thanks to Major Kai Chai, who gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast membership. That brings it up to a total of 10. Thank you for helping us hit our goal, Major Chai Chai.
That's awesome.
Really appreciate it. And we also have a members chat from Shorty Short, member for 5 months. Thank you so much for being a member for that long, Shorty Short.
Hail Laura.
A great Trek prequel would be stories set in space, set when space travel first started, kind of Apollo 13 style, with stuff that went awry. Actually, For All Mankind is a show just like that. It's really, really good. If you guys want to check that out on Apple. Yeah, I agree. A good Trek prequel would kind of be like the dawn of it, but that's kind of what Enterprise is supposed to be. I think they got kind of off track for that.
Right.
What do I know? And then Mexican Iron Man for $9.99. I am not watching any more Star Trek from Terry unless he sends somebody to Home Depot to buy a case of light bulbs so I can actually see what the hell is going on in that crap that he films puts out. It's very dark. Yes. Very dark.
So Mexican Iron Man did not like season 3, did he?
I think he thought it was
passable. It was pretty dark. I'm not going to lie. It was, they could have turned the lights on.
And Mexican Iron Man goes against that stereotype. He doesn't know how to do drywall or mow his own lawn.
It's a great bookkeeper, though.
Well, it's numbers, so you think he would be Asian.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Yeah, maybe he was part of it.
Hey, I said I got your back because these are jokes you all want to tell. I can tell them.
That's a good joke.
That is a good joke. That's something that Matt Bader would say and get us canceled. Or if we had Mr. Reagan on the panel.
Never.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Love that boy. That boy nuts.
All right, guys. So we went from Star Trek, and now I want to talk about Brian's favorite subject, which is Star Wars. We got a couple of Star Wars news dropping, and I know it's everyone's favorite topic, so we're going to spend a lot of time on this. So basically, it came out that they announced that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which is the worst title they could have possibly come up with, has been greenlit, and it's being developed and directed by the man himself, Jon Favreau. And this is basically going to be the follow-up to season 3 of The Mandalorian, where basically we're going to get the wrap-up of the Mandoverse that Jon Favreau wanted to tell with this film. And that has to do with like the retaking of Mandalore and all that fun stuff. But in addition to this, we got another news story that I'm going to kind of group into this as we talk about it, which is there was this great article in the Hollywood Reporter about the 3-body problem and how Benioff and Weiss are involved in it. And in this article, they actually talk about their rejected Star Wars concept that they were going to make at Lucasfilm before they kind of got fired and moved on to their Netflix deal.
Rejected, right?
Yeah.
Rejected.
Well, what's funny is so like their pitch to Lucasfilm was the first Jedi.
Yeah.
And it was going to go back in time and show you how the first Jedi came to be. And Lucasfilm was like, no, that's dumb. Fuck you. You're fired. and then James Mangold comes along and they're like, hey, you want to do a Dawn of the Jedi movie? And he's like, sure. And it's basically the exact same concept that Benioff and Weiss pitched.
There's some shenanigans going on here. Shenanigans.
There's definitely some shenanigans going on, but it was interesting that they finally came out and kind of told people what their concept was. And they even kind of like, even though they're friends with Rian Johnson, they kind of like gave him some shit because they're like, he called his movie The Last Jedi, and that kind of like poo-pooed our title, The First Jedi.
Mhm.
And so like they have a little bit of fun, bad blood there. But I want to talk about this because basically all the focus has been on the Rey movie coming forward, which nobody wants because everyone hates the sequels, right? But now with this getting announced, so this is separate from the Dave Filoni Mandoverse movie that
Yeah,
they're gonna be doing.
I was going to ask. I was confused. It's like, is that the same movie or is it different movies? Because
It's different. So the theory now is that Filoni is going to be making a movie with the Ahsoka characters and Thrawn and like all that stuff, and that's going to be his focus. Whereas the Mandoverse movie is going to be about the Mandalorian and Grogu with the retaking of Mandalore and reestablishing the Mandalorians on that planet.
So the Rebels is getting a movie? That's interesting.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Pretty much.
cool.
So what I want to ask you guys is, like, who's asking for this stuff? Like, do you think that Tom, do you think it's a good idea to do a Mandoverse movie with Jon Favreau?
Well, first of all, I mean, as far as like the whole Benioff Weiss thing, Damon Lindelof, all that kind of business, I think what we've got here now is proof that nobody can really come with an original idea. I think 9 times out of 10, they tell you what to pitch. And then like we learned with Lindelof, and then now with Benioff and Weiss and with Mangold taking over that project, basically, is that they have kind of a set idea of what projects they want to make. They're just trying to plug in people to these projects now. I think that's what's going on here. Because and it makes sense when Zack Snyder comes and says, I want to do Battle Beyond the Stars, but in Star Wars, she's like, nah, go do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like, I think the idea with the whole Mando thing, that this is, to me, I feel a desperate move on Bob Iger's part. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure most people can tell, Favreau checked out the moment Gina Carano was exited. Right. And whether he's been around or not, he has not been around in heart and spirit. That's for goddamn sure. And sorry, Odin. But like at this point, this to me feels like Bob Iger looking at all the news from Sinead O'Noy opening her mouth last week. Because don't forget, she's been announced to be a part of this project now for over half a year. Since it was last at D23 or whatever it was. This was off of her recent comments to what's his face, the Daily Show guy, Jon Stewart.
And that was from years ago, though, right? Wasn't that?
No. That was recent, but people were digging up shit that she had said years ago.
Oh, okay.
The whole Star Wars thing that was a more recent thing on this women's panel thing that she was on.
She said more women need to finally be in charge of Star Wars stuff. Yeah,
yes, okay, that whole thing. And that whole thing set off this spitfire for the last week and a half or whatever it was. And nobody could talk about anything but that whole thing in the Rey movie and what it was going to be and blah, 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 blah. So Bob Iger probably was like, oh, fuck, what do I do? What do I do?
Jon Favreau.
John, save me. What do we got here? And he's like, well, they have pretty much fucked off my Mando and Grogu character. How about we do a Grogu and Mando movie? He's like, brilliant, perfect. Let's get it going, because they already had to move the Rey movie because it wasn't ready. So they have that spot open. So this movie is taking priority now. That's the other thing that I noticed too. This to me feels just like it did when Bob Iger come out and said, we fucked up. The buck stops with me now with Star Wars. From here on out, I take responsibility. And that's when The Mandalorian season 1 happened. Remember, he had Jon Favreau there to kind of focus this thing. But I don't think this is going to save anything. I think this is just leftovers at this point.
I think we can all agree that season 1 of Mando was the best one, right?
Season 1 and 2 were fine, yeah. And that's
great.
where he seemingly had the most control.
Right.
And for those who don't remember what happened behind the scenes in the timeline, there is the exact same time that Gina Carano was ousted. The end of season 2 happened, And Kathleen Kennedy was told by Bob Chapek to quit mucking around with Blood and Bone and get over here and start worrying about Indiana Jones and Star Wars. All those things culminated at the same time. And I think that the reason Gina was ousted is because Kathy came back over, because like we were hearing rumors that she was just kind of like a satellite parent at that point, worrying about her other crap.
Right.
And Jon Favreau was the one who was really kind of, you know, doing this whole Mandoverse thing, and she just insisted that Filoni be inserted too, because that was her little boy, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so like, and that's where things went off the rails, and we can tell with Boba Fett and season 3 of Mandalorian, and the fact that we're not getting Rangers of the Republic and half these other shows that were announced, that all of John's plans went out the window, obviously. So I think it would be hilarious also at the end of this movie that it just ends with Grogu getting handed back over to Luke, because I think that was originally his plan to begin with. And that because he had a completely different storyline idea that got thrown away because of Gina Carano being excised, and he refused. And that's the only way I guess he could stand up for, is he refused to recast her. So, and that's all I can really say on that. At this point, I don't think it's going to save anything. I think the reason it hasn't trended is because people already can see it for what it is. It's a desperate move on Bob Iger's part. They barely announced this thing on StarWars.com. So I think that if Kathleen Kennedy's in control of the marketing department over there, that's why that happened instead of some kind of fanfare. Because wouldn't you think this is a big deal? This is the biggest thing they have. Baby Grogu is all they've got, really.
Yeah.
All I know is this, is that from somebody like me who's just been is completely checked out of Star Wars at this point. The news that he might have Favreau come in and make a movie at least made my eyebrow go, It's like, really? Is okay, that was interesting to me. And it's the first thing that's been interesting to me from Star Wars in a very long time. So I guess in that aspect, he this strategy of bringing Favreau in, it kind of works. You know, I mean, Favreau does have the track record. He's, you know, he started the MCU, right? He's not like an unproven director and writer. The guy does good work. So if you know, I think I remember a time when a lot of us Star Wars nerds were like, well, just put Favreau in charge, get rid of Kennedy and put Favreau in charge, you know? And of course he would never do that, and that was always just a pipe dream. But he's the one guy that I think can kind of give some of us a little bit hope.
He's the last hope
for something somewhat entertaining. And I'm trying to tamper my expectations way down, because I'm not a huge fan of Grogu and the Mandalorian, but you know, maybe Favreau is the one guy that can give us something at least interesting that I might go spend money on a ticket for and do it willingly. So I don't know. This is what I have to say. So,
well, I want to kind of focus a little bit more in on the Benioff and Weiss part of the story, because, you know, they were famous for Game of Thrones, and everyone was like, oh, they're geniuses, even though they were just adapting a genius book and putting their own stupid spins on it. And by the time we got to the final season, the luster had worn off, and everyone was like, these guys are hacks, because that final season was terrible. And they had already set up kind of like, you know, like, oh, we're going to be making a Star Wars movie. We're going to be, you know, doing this Netflix deal and blah, blah, blah. And after the Game of Thrones stuff kind of hit, Lucasfilm was kind of like, we don't want to work with you guys. But they've done this time and time again, where basically they have all these like stories set up, like Obi-Wan and you know, the First Jedi and all these things, where they want to make these things after people pitch them to them, but they reject the initial people, and then they carry on to like you know, their own hand selected people to do these terrible ideas. Thankfully, Rian Johnson's trilogy, it doesn't seem to be going forward anymore. But Odin, I want to throw this to you. Like, why do you think Star Wars just keeps doubling down on stuff people don't want to see? And you know, they've announced like, I think 4 movies up to this point. Do you think, I think the Rey one is going to get made, but do you think any of these are actually going to like see the light of day?
I mean, I honestly, and I've been saying this for a while, especially since the Rey movie got announced, that I just honestly don't believe any of them are going to be made until they actually have started filming, and until they've actually completed filming, until they've actually completed editing. And the reason why I say is because this is the Kathleen Kennedy regime, and this is what she is notorious for, is for every project without fail going through behind the scenes chaos. And when you especially remember, like, the most famous of the examples, financially, especially with Solo, right, where, you know, firing the people running the film when you've already shot a huge portion of the movie, and then ballooning that budget to bring Ron Howard in to change things, you know, that is the current state of Lucasfilm. Is you have an incompetent woman, creatively especially incompetent woman, in charge of all these things. And so I think it absolutely does scream of desperation. And so until you actually do clean house, which of course means Kathleen Kennedy, it also just means all of her underlings, all of the ones that have been, you know, brought in, you know, either under her or around the same time as her, whatever it might be. And until you have her out, and again, I think it goes all the way up to the top as well, right? Because of everything being focused so much on activism, then you're never going to be able to bring things forward, right? Because even though Grogu is this very, you know, popular character and everyone is obsessed with Grogu, the thing I always like to remind people of is, yes, that might have helped their toy sales, but none of those people went on to go watch the show. The people who were like, oh my gosh, this character is so cute, they were happy to share the images on Twitter, on X, on all these platforms, maybe even to buy some stuffed animals, right? But
Odin's
watching the
correct.
content, no. Like, they're just not doing it.
Because I ran into plenty of people, because I was one of the first people who had a Baby Yoda shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody would go, oh, I love your shirt. Where did you get it? And I tell them whatever. I'd be like, oh, the kids love it. And I'd be like, well, what do you think of the show? They're like, oh, no, we don't watch it. The kids just like Baby Yoda.
Yep.
It's like Gizmo's uncle.
Yeah, I mean,
the little gremlin guy.
Baby Thor, my son, you know, he has a couple of Baby Yoda things, but we just have always called it Baby Yoda because we're only showing him the original trilogy. And in his mind, he's like, yeah, it kind of looks like Yoda. I know Yoda. This is just a baby Yoda. And I mean, if a 3-year-old has that kind of a connection with it, right? And we think about how bad those ratings have been. I mean, adapting this into a movie, to me, just sounds like a death knell because it's just going to prove how no one is watching your stuff. So
That's very true. So, Paulie,
Yes, I've been waiting very patiently.
one of the things that stood out to me with this announcement of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, they might as well just call it Lone Wolf and Cub. The Mandalorian is the only Star Wars property I can really point to that has a very clear male lead in it, right? And it seems to me like a lot of these other movies that have been announced are going to be female focused. And just for context, guys, I want to show you, this is the Lucasfilm Story Group right here. These are the people that are responsible for
Where's
writing or signing off on you know, all the Star Wars movies that are going to be going forward.
Did Pablo Hidalgo transition? Where is he in there?
Maybe he was taking the picture.
Okay.
But Paulie, do you
Yes.
think what do you think of this strategy that Kathleen Kennedy has of trying to change the demographic of the fan base of Star Wars to be more female centric at the expense of the male fan base?
A complete disaster it's been. Because now no one's watching him. No one cares. You've pissed off the male-dominated fans. Trying to change it into a female brand. It's not a female brand.
Nope.
You got, and yet you've always had very original, multi-layered female characters. I mean, Princess Leia was probably one of the first pioneering type of princess who said, you know, get out of my way. You know, I'm who's saving who. Like, let's go. You could break down her character in Star Wars, you know, as you know, really an incredible character. So they've always existed. And again, now they're all just cut out cardboards of the same thing. What you're just doing now is you're changing brunette, black woman, Asian woman, you know, and they're forgettable characters. They're terribly written. You know, I can't even go after the actors because they're just trying to do something that's just not even there on the page, which is offer something a little more in depth. I mean, it's really, really difficult unless you're like a De Niro or a Brando. Even then, they've acted in bad films. But yeah, that's what I think of Kathleen Kennedy and what she's done.
Mhm.
But I have
Well,
my other Jon Favreau notes.
Go for it, man. Tell
Yeah.
us what you want to say.
Yeah, I actually think this is a great move as far as the Mandalorian Grogu film happening. But there's got to be a couple things. What Favreau has always shown to me is that he's a master of the long game. This guy's had a great career.
Mhm.
He continues to be successful, which those corporations love. Then he knows how to do his own personal projects from chef to maid, etc. So I think he saw the writing on the wall with what was going on, and he's just been playing the long game. Now, that being said, for this film to have a chance, right? And we go back to what we were talking about, all these elements coming together for a miracle to have a good film, much less a bad film. He has to have creative control. Odin's absolutely right. This is a regime. They got, and you can tell what they've been doing with the regime. Favreau has to have creative control. I cannot imagine him saying yes to a film that's going to take so much of his time of his life if he doesn't. To me, he would have walked away. So those are a couple things. Also, too, we're talking about the elements for this to be successful, for this to line up and put all the money. This is where Lucasfilm, where they're going to put their money in, is behind this film right now. And the reason why it's fast tracked is that a lot of these characters already exist.
Mhm.
Din Djarin, Grogu, Luke Skywalker, they're all there. And you can arguably say that the greatest moment in Disney Star Wars was when
Luke came back.
When he showed up. I mean, it was incredible. Baby Grogu, it's all debatable, right? Tom and Odin are right. Is that all the normies have bought the merchandise? They even buy gifts for other people that, oh yeah, he's a Star Wars fan. Give him that Grogu shirt. Disney needs that. You are right. They are desperate for that hit. It ain't gonna be Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. Let's do it. Absolutely. And here's another thing that people aren't gonna like to hear, but I really don't care. Pedro Pascal is bigger than ever before. He is a name. Whether he's just the voice in this film or not, they need him part of this project as well. So you have all these elements that can make a hit. Grogu, Luke, Pedro, Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, existing universe that Favreau has created over the last couple of seasons. Season 3 was horrible. I'm not going to defend that. Okay? Scheduling. It's scheduled all right now. Pedro has backed out of a couple other different projects that were in pre-pro. He's not doing them. He's doing this. So I mean the old school fan of me, it raised my eyebrow. If Favreau has creative control, I am all in, because I am a fan first. I've always have been since I was a little kid.
Yep.
And I like the first couple seasons of Mando. I think that's all I got.
All right, great. So I want to throw this just to the panel. We're all pretty kind of like meh on Star Wars nowadays, right? Like it's worse than hate or resentment. It's apathy. And I think that a large portion of the Star Wars fan base is in there with us, where they've just stopped caring. Like you have Disney's bots out there trying to pretend that like people are still passionate about like, oh, I love that scene where Rey jumps over Kylo Ren's ship and slashes it in two with her lightsaber. But like all the other fans are just like, meh, it was dumb when we first saw it, still dumb. So do you guys think that there's any way Lucasfilm can shift the narrative and actually get this franchise back on track? I just want to throw that out to the panel.
Start making good movies again. That's it. I mean, I don't think it's that complicated, right? Make good movies that we are interested in. Quit making social justice warrior stories and just entertain us. I know they can do it. Rogue One was passable, They can even have women as the leads. I don't care. I'm not afraid of strong women. I just want them to be good characters and not Mary Sue's. You know what I'm saying? Just make entertaining shows. That's all. I don't think it's that complicated. I mean, I couldn't do it because I'm kind of stupid, but I think that people with the skills can put together movies that we as Star Wars fans would all like to watch, and that wouldn't divide the fandom. They got to bring the fandom back together. I don't even know if it's possible anymore, but they got to do something.
Well, do you think that, you know, the Star Wars director, I forget her name, the Pakistani one,
Shanoid.
Shanoid. Do you think that, you know, her coming out and saying like it's about time women got to shape the story of Star Wars, like
Doesn't help.
yeah, like do you think that this whole thing about like like women got to be directing these things, women got to be writing these things, women got to be, you know, starring in these things, we have to focus on bringing more women into Star
Mhm.
Wars, like why do you think they keep doubling down on this strategy when it's obviously not working and it's not resonating with the male fan base of Star
Right.
Wars, which makes up the majority of it?
'Cause they're
Odin, do
activists.
you wanna-
Yeah, they're activists. That's the reason why. You know, it's plain and simple. Like where it's not about it's not about the money. It's about the message, and I think that's absolutely true. I just looked up real quick, and you know, obviously they need to, as I said, just drop anyone who is pushing this woke nonsense into the movies and behind the scenes, any of the DEI, whatever it might be. Like they got to go because they're really what's bleeding it. But then also the other thing, and I always harp on this, is you got to spend less money. I'm sorry, you don't need to spend this much money. I did the math on it. The first Star Wars movie cost $11 million, and in today's dollars, that would be roughly $60 million to make. If you can make a movie like that, right, where obviously you look at some of the effects, and obviously some of it can be, you know, dated, but you just think about how you could do so much just even with $100 million today, where you could make it look still fantastic. Again, great examples of that more recently would be, we'll look at what they did with Godzilla -1, look what they have done with you know, the creator as well, having a lower budget and also still looking very good. That can be done. That part of it can be done. So
Sound
what
of
you
Freedom.
need is less spending, but then also get rid of the woke ideologues and actually get good writers. If you get those three things, you can make something that can actually you
Can
know,
I
make money.
I want to highlight a chat really quick. I gotta find it. Mr. Gore. We've had enough female leads in Star Wars.
Mhm.
I'm good. I want Lucasfilm to prove they can make a Star Wars film with a strong male lead. They can't. All right. I don't disagree with him. I was just saying that I'm not afraid of a well-written, well-made female lead. It doesn't bother me that much. But
well,
But because of what
I
they've
agree with
done,
Chris.
I think
Yeah.
he's right. I think
Yeah,
that
for
at
sure.
this point they do need a actual male lead. Like, and again, people may not like it, but again, they've tried that and they've pushed it. But the only way that you're ever going to convince anyone that you're not going to go that route, the first thing you're going to see is, who's the lead and who are they going to be trying to push? So
well, I also want to point out that
Mhm.
the way Hollywood's run nowadays, and Paulie can probably back me up on this, it used to be that you had to pay your dues, you had to work your way up, you had to prove to people that you knew what you were doing in order to get into positions where you were a shot caller, and people took their craft seriously. Screenwriters often came from being novelists. You often
Mhm.
had directors who were like actors or producers or someone who had production experience that they could bring in something at on time and on budget. But more than that, they actually had an affinity for telling stories. Like they loved telling stories. Nowadays in Hollywood, like you don't need to have ever written anything in order to be a writer on a TV show or a movie. You don't ever have to have directed anything to be a director on a TV show or a movie, apparently, anymore. And so like the whole culture behind the production of these stories has shifted to the point where like the barrier to entry is so low that the people who were put in charge of telling these stories don't actually know how to tell stories. They have never actually dived into their craft. And so I mean, just look at Lucasfilm, right? Like they're putting in fact, I want to kind of call back Bob Iger's thing about the Marvels and why that failed, where he said there wasn't enough studio oversight on that movie, and that's why it failed, because we had this director who was a woman of color, and she just obviously needed a studio head there to tell her what to do. And I get the same sense in Lucasfilm here, where you have a documentary filmmaker who directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel, supposedly, and basically they're like, yeah, let's give her $100 million sequel to help relaunch the biggest film franchise in the entire world. And everyone at Lucasfilm thinks that's a good idea. It just seems it seems to me like Hollywood has really lost its way. And Paulie, do you think that there's a way where Hollywood can like actually get people who know what they're doing to come in and promote them, as opposed to all these like nepo babies and, you know, like connection sluts and all these other things where it's just like about who you know, as opposed to like what you can actually do?
Well, the thing is, a lot of them exist. It's just that they're not being called upon because they probably don't their work, or they're just not very politically active. You know, they actually you know, are into the work or into the craft. They work very hard, and or they pass. Like they don't want to. There is that too, right? They don't want to do a superhero movie. I don't want to do like David Ayer. You know, I don't want to do a franchise film, because what happens too is these huge corporations like Marvel and, you know, that run these creative IPs, is that they'll see someone who's got talent. Maybe they did an indie film, and it kind of like, oh, okay, we like their politics, you know, give them the Eternals, crash and burn. Like talented people, but they have no business doing these type of films. They have no know-how to do these type of films. They have no experience on any level with these higher level films. If anyone was groomed to do a Star Wars film that is a female, who's in line, right? You work up in line. That's how Kater says. You work, you pay your dues. Would be Howard. Bryce Dallas Howard. Yeah. She has been in the business since she was a kid. She knows how it runs. And nepotism is in every industry. I don't give a shit. So, you know, if you can prove yourself, yeah, the door is open. But she's proven herself. Even when the episode that was written badly, you found something, you know, worthy as far as her directorial vision, and she's shined with certain episodes of the Mando. So she would seem to have been the next one in line. Like give her that film. Mm-hmm. Deborah Chow just crashed and burned because she did a couple good episodes. It's like, oh, let her show run Obi-Wan. That just goes to show you gave someone too much, you know, on that next step. You know, it's all at the end of the day. It's all at the end of the day. What's the work? What is the work that's put out there? So yeah, Shinoy can yell and scream all these wants, but the truth is that she did 2 episodes of the Marvel, Miss Marvel, whatever it was, that had to be heavily reshot. She's not suited for this type of entertainment. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, that's like me trying to, or, you know, like switch around. You know, hey, Ron Howard, go do a documentary on the suffering of Pakistani women in a 12-minute short. Go. Yeah. No one want to watch that. Yeah. They don't want to take him seriously.
I wonder. I'm sorry. I wonder if Favreau would bring in some of the people he's worked with on the Mandalorian series as like co-directors or something like that on the movie that he's going to make.
The movie's different, right? Yeah. Right. The collaboration, everything's different. So right now, you know, I'm sure there's been a script.
I mean, I just see it. Mm-hmm. I just see it like, you know, you got Jon Favreau's going to direct this movie, right? If it gets made. And if they want people like Ron Howard's daughter, I forget her name.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard. Mm-hmm. She's in the pipe, right? She does stuff for these shows. And if they want her to someday make a Star Wars movie, I would think that her being put under somebody like Jon Favreau, who has the credentials to make a movie like this, and she can learn off of him and maybe some of these other people with a movie like this, they can like set them up for future Star Wars projects.
That's a smart move. That would be in their benefit. If like, hey, John, can you have a couple of directors, can they ghost and just,
if they could actually like have like a training thing involved.
Right.
Real quick, guys, we got a couple super chats I want to get to. The Joker's voice for $5. If Jon Favreau has complete control, would Iger give him control of casting too? Bring back Gina, give Grogu back to Luke, Muck Filoni's film, #keep talking.
That would be interesting, right?
Yeah, that'd be cool with me.
That would be that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, Fluffy Panda for $10. Hey all, sorry I'm late watching Reacher, LOL. Which would be better, a brand new Star Wars movie, no connection to anyone, or remake the Thrawn trilogy right using CGI type Final Fantasy movie, Hail Lord Pineapple on Pizza? I think that, no connection would probably be the way to go.
I think the Thrawn trilogy has flown the coop. I think they've already mined it for what they're wanting to mine with the Ahsoka stuff, and it sucks, but
another $5 from Fluffy Panda. Reacher is the greatest. They mentioned Buffalo, go Bills, and I wonder if anything positive is even possible with Kathleen Kennedy and Disney behind the curtain. I kind of doubt it.
Nope,
but guys,
with her.
Well, I want to touch on one thing you did say, Kadish, about the whole Bob Iger, and there wasn't enough oversight from the studio and all that kind of shit. I have watched thousands upon thousands of hours of behind the scenes making of documentaries, listened to hundreds of thousands of hours of commentaries. There's not one time in the history of any of those things have I ever heard the words, I'm glad we had studio interference on this movie because it helped.
Not once.
Not once. No. In fact, the opposite, which is my point. And Paulie's right, and you guys are right. We used to make fun of music video directors when they would jump to the big time, right? Now I would give my left nut for a fucking music video director to direct a Star Wars movie, because you are 100% right. Ever since you basically had the Russo brothers, every director Marvel has picked has been somebody who's over their politics and not their actual fucking talent. And that's a problem. It's the same thing with Star Wars, same thing with Marvel. You keep getting documentary directors from India, you're going to wind up with the Eternals.
Yeah, guys. So we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Salty Saturday show. Odin, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just as one last note, I do think that going back to the mention of the Thrawn trilogy, I would disagree to a point about it being done, because that would have required a lot of people to have watched that show, and I don't think a lot of people did. So I think that if you get rid of the activists and you actually get competent people in charge, that could work. But we're a long way from that ever happening. But you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, on Aussie Rumble, also over on Twitter/X. Please make sure to put your nominations out there for my now 6th annual Raven Awards Oscars boycott show. Put your nominations out there. Form has been posted on the socials.
Oh, man.
Thank you again.
Is it award season?
No. Unfortunately,
it has been. Yes,
but mine is more fun, I think. So
I remember watching those a couple of years ago. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, Paulie from the Latino Slant. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Final thoughts. Certainly a great time for our channels. Definitely not a shortage of stuff to talk about. Latino Slant, we just launched thelatinoslant.com. Movie reviews, movie thoughts, articles, reviews, as well as links to our videos. Please stop on by. We just put up a review of Echo yesterday, doing a review of Ted. I think there's a new and I have writers, so I'm like, I don't, he reviewed the new Ted series. I got to put that up. And it's exciting, taking that next step, growing the channel, and we're almost up to 11K on the YouTube. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.
That's awesome. Tom Connors, new panelist. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more?
Nude panelist.
Nude.
Nude.
I didn't see that in the calendar.
Yeah, speaking of, what's this calendar bullshit?
You gotta watch the highlight. If you want to find out.
We got time for that. Just send me the picture or whatever.
I'll
Yeah.
put it.
Nothing.
I'll put it in the group chat, Tom.
Who's Miss July? That's all I care about.
It's
You
already
can
in the
find
group
me at
chat.
After Dark, Midnight's Edge After Dark. It's another channel besides Midnight's Edge, and of course Midnight's Edge, Mead Radio, and all the other fun places I hang out.
Good stuff. Matt Vader 74. We have a good friend of ours in the chat. Late
Yes.
Night with JT. Do you want to
Uh-huh.
give a shout out to his milestone?
I do. I want JT to put a link to his channel in the chat first off, and I want to congratulate him for hitting that 500 member milestone, that 500 sub. You know, when you're starting out a new channel, it's hard. He's been grinding, man. He's been grinding for a couple years on that thing now, and he has a fun little talk show that he does. And I'm very proud of JT. He's one of our big time. He's one of our major Salty Nerd members, and he's been around for a very long time. And you know, and I'm very happy for JT for hitting 500 subs, and I hope his channel skyrockets. And I'm pretty sure he just needs to work on the watch hours now so we can get monetized. So support JT, guys, and support this show. Go to saltynerdlive.com and hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and you can also help me by going to Matt Vader 74 on YouTube and Kick, because I'm playing games over there as a side hustle, and hit those thumbs up buttons. Hit the subs.
And I want to remind everyone that one of the new things we're doing is after our live streams on Tuesday, we go and we do an hour-long members live stream. So all you guys who got those gifted memberships and stuff like that, if you tune in on Tuesday, we're going to have a good time with a members-only live stream for you guys to hop on and enjoy. And we've also got a lot of other, back catalog member stuff that you can find in our members playlist on our channel. So if you want to go and take full advantage of your membership, go and check those things out. They're a lot of fun, and Matt Vader always keeps us on our toes because he says things on those things that we can't say publicly on the channel. Good times had by all. And we're also playing around a little bit with the Tuesday time zone that we go live at. So we're thinking about doing it a little bit earlier than we normally do. It's usually at 2 p.m. on Pacific time, but we may be going a little bit earlier. So we want to hear your feedback on what times work best for you on Tuesday to watch us. And also wanted to ask you guys if you liked our new kind of like layout for Salty Saturday, where we try to feature the person talking a little bit more. So give us some feedbacks in the comments about what you think about that, because if you don't like it, we'll stop doing it. But we're experimenting around. We're trying to figure some things out. But we really appreciate you guys, especially all of you who donated to the show. Mexican Iron Man, The Joker's Voice, No Money G, Chad Man, Rec Films Montana, and Fluffy Panda. You guys are awesome.
I think you're missing one. You got one more.
Yeah, we got one more just under the wire from Cyberhunk 2069. Anyone looking forward to Caval's 40K? Reacher and Terminalist prove manly properties can thrive on Prime. If Henry has free reign to do the 41st Millennium Justice, it will be a new dawn for mankind. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think Cavill is passionate about it. They're giving him a lot of creative freedom on that show, and it might be good. It'll definitely be better than Halo. I'll tell you that much. All right, guys. So thank you everyone who tuned in, and be sure to tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel. And as always, stay salty, my friends. Have a good one, and we will see you next week.